Centurion Perfidius of the auxiliary cohort, Britanniarum in Felix, has been set the task of delivering a small herd of cattle to the headquarters of General Germanicus, currently engaged upon his magnificent campaign of revenge against the Germanic tribes and their most treacherous leader, Arminius, following their destruction of Publius Quinctilius Varus and his 3 Roman legions 5 years ago. Second in command to Perfidius is his longtime companion, the Optio Odius. Odius wields his Optio's vine stick like a rod of iron, maintaining order within the ranks and ensuring that strict discipline is preserved throughout the fiercest pressure of battle. The Britanniarum in Felix are unique amongst the auxiliary cohorts of the Roman army, being formed personally by the great Julius Caesar himself during his brief sojourn to Britannia in 55 BC. It was originally manned by vigorous, mustachioed Gallic warriors from the southern British tribes, enticed by the prospect of regular pay and fighting alongside olive-skinned men wearing short red skirts. To add a little extra security to Perfidius's mission, Germanicus has detailed a small detachment of legionaries to keep a close watch upon the cattle. Although these legionaries are not the elite, they do wear improved partial armor, and their drilled and impulsum traits make them a difficult opponent to face. Keeping the general's cattle in good order is Lustwig the Batavian drover, employed by Germanicus to guarantee the beasts arrive at the marching camp in the very best condition, ready to be slaughtered, butchered and cooked to perfection, for the feast of the goddess Minerva. 500 captured Germanic warriors will be forced to prostrate themselves at the festivities and observe the general and his staff gluttonously consume the succulent beef, so recently purloined from their very own farmsteads. The unadulterated strategy of destruction adopted by Germanicus has had devastating effects upon many of the smaller tribes of the Teutoburg forest, who have been left starving and without shelter in the wake of the Roman advance. One such tribe is the Insanitari, and their leader, Adalbrain, has been goaded, bullied and threatened by the harridan Insanitari women into making foolhardy attempts to find sustenance to improve the chances of the tribe surviving the approaching harsher months. The passage of Perfidius and his mouth-watering convoy through Insanitari territory has heightened the menace of the tribal ladies to the point where Adalbrain, contrary to good military sense, has succumbed to their threats upon his manhood, and he has gathered his pitiful tribesmen together in order to ambush the Romans as they pass through a nearby forest trackway. Accompanying Adalbrain is the veteran warrior Baldenhard. Once renowned for his fearless presence and commanding demeanor on the battlefield, but, in more recent times, recognized as a warrior who fears the consequences of failing the demands of the Insanitari women somewhat more than he does the fighting abilities of the legionaries of Rome. The initiative dice roll for turn 1 of the battle goes convincingly to the Insanitari. So the game begins. And, with empty stomachs rumbling, Adalbrain and Baldenhard cannot stop their tribesmen from breaking cover of the forest and dashing headlong into full view of the Romans. Clearly, the Germanic warriors believe that today will go the same way as it did 5 years previously, under the command of the legendary Arminius. Responding with typical Roman efficiency, Centurion Perfidius commands the Blue Shield auxiliaries to cross the forest track and support Odius, while he presses forward with the legionaries and the cattle. The legionaries prepare to face the oncoming onslaught from Baldenhard's command with grim determination and the knowledge that the grizzled centurion is just a few paces behind them, with his sword drawn and no intention whatsoever to hand over the general's beef to the miserable Insanitari. Adalbrain's tribesmen pour out from the cover of the forest, with courage in their hearts and the comforting thought of roast beef in their brains. Baldenhard's javelin men hurry to place themselves between the advancing Romans and the fork in the track. They must at all costs, and, to avoid the devastating abuse of the Insanitari women, prevent the legionaries from reaching the wooden bridge and the relative safety of the eastern bank of the river. Thus, turn 1 draws to a close, with both sides positioning themselves for the epic struggle to come, for control of the general's feast on the hoof. The only certainties being that blood will spill across the unspoiled land of the Insanitari, and by the end of the day, the spoils will be cooked and eaten by the victorious, while the defeated, alas, will go hungry. The initiative roll goes badly awry for the Insanitari in turn 2, and it is the Romans who will be able to ready themselves for any coming combat. The legionaries continue to push along the forest track with Centurion Perfidius, while the Blue Shield auxiliaries risk a third action to get themselves into close order. Meanwhile, the small group of Insanitari archers move into a position to shoot. At less than 16 inches range, they can fire at full effect. But, with a shoot value of 5+, they shoot wide of the mark and the Romans suffer no casualties. Desperate to clash spears with the Roman auxiliaries, a group of German tribesmen move forward to attack, but the Romans use one of Odius's command points to test for a reaction and are able to form close order before the attackers strike home. In close order, the Romans can use shield overlap to enforce a -1 penalty on the Germans' dice scores. However, as both sides have throwing spears, they will not be able to gain a defensive attack in the coming melee. The Germans roll brilliantly, scoring no less than 5 hits on the auxiliaries. Mars, the god of war, must be looking benevolently down upon the Romans, however, as they also roll 5 successful saving dice and no casualties are caused. The disappointed Insanitari fall back from the fray to draw breath and hope that Adalbrain can wrest the initiative back from the Romans for the next turn. So, turn 2 has seen the first shots fired and the first test of strength. But no life has been taken by the gods. Baldenhard's tribesmen and javelin men seem to have secured the vital bend in the forest track before the legionaries can arrive. But Adalbrain's brave tribesmen are looking somewhat isolated, with 2 auxiliary contubernia in close order within striking distance. In turn 3, the initiative swings wildly back to the Insanitari, giving them the advantage in the combat to come. Seizing their opportunity, the Insanitari tribesmen make an all-out attack on the auxiliaries. This maneuver will bring more fatigue but will convert any natural 6s rolled to 2 hits instead of 1. The Insanitari roll well but would have loved to have rolled the same as they did in turn 2. The 2 6s boost their score to 5 hits. As the Romans were unable to react to the Germanic attack, they chose the defend combat response, which gives them the chance to cancel hits using their melee factor. This wise choice cancels 3 of the Insanitari hits, with a 4th cancelled by the saving throw. The first casualty of the encounter goes down and the Romans will have to test for morale. The auxiliaries' roll is not good and they receive 2 fatigue points and are stalled, meaning they cannot react if the Insanitari choose to continue their attack. The Insanitari tribesmen do indeed attack again and the Romans again choose to respond with defend, although they have lost their close order formation. This time, the Germanic attack is much less effective, their 2 fatigue points giving them -1 on the combat roll, which causes only 2 hits. Although the auxiliaries fail to counter either hit with their defend response, a successful saving throw cancels both hits and the Magnificent 7 survive. Having used the defend combat response, the auxiliaries fall back 1 inch and they have accumulated 2 fatigue points. The Insanitari tribesmen's attacks have left them with 3 fatigue points and only 1 remaining action. Things could start to get difficult for the tribesmen, with a second contubernium of the Britanniarium, with Optio Odius in command, advancing threateningly on their left flank. Inevitably, Odius unleashes his auxiliaries into the breathless Insanitari. Cheered on by their compatriots, the auxiliaries score 4 hits on the Germans. With little alternative but to hold, they fail to save any of the strikes and 4 of their number go down. The Insanitari roll well on their morale test and only add 1 more fatigue point. Sensing glory, the triumphant auxiliaries launch a second attack and the situation looks grim indeed for the Insanitari. 4 more hits on the Germans with only 1 defended. Leaves just a single tribesman standing. With such high fatigue, the last of the tribesmen has no option but to flee the field of battle, leaving the auxiliaries victorious. although with 3 fatigue points that they will need to alleviate before pressing on into further action. Taking the opportunity to avenge their lost comrades, the insanitary archers loose off a volley of arrows towards the auxiliaries. Their single hit is saved by the Romans, however, and Adalbrain is wishing that he had used his opportunity to launch his second unit of tribesmen in to attack the Roman legionaries, rather than use it on a wasted action with his archers. Perfidius orders his legionaries to attack Adalbrain's tribesmen, and they use their first action to move into position. Realizing his mistake, Adalbrain takes a reaction test in an attempt to seize the initiative in the inevitable fight to come. Amazingly, he rolls well enough to give his tribesmen the chance to charge the Romans before they can launch their attack at him. The tribesmen charge home, catching the legionaries on the back foot. Not for the first time, the insanitari wish they had made an all-out attack. They score 6 hits on the legionaries, but their defend action enables them to cancel out all of them, although it leaves them with no further actions to make in this turn. Both sides face each other, drawing breath and weighing up their options for the next phase of the battle. Snatching an opportunity to inflict some damage on the legionaries, Baldenhard's javelin men hurl a volley of spears into the gasping enemy, causing an unexpected 3 hits, all of which fail to bring down a legionary. Desperate to influence the battle in favor of their leaders, the javelin men try a second volley, but, this time, they fail to make any impact whatsoever. Taking the failure of the javelin men as an omen from the gods, Adalbrain calls his tribesmen back and they retreat away from the seemingly blessed legionaries. At the end of turn 3, the insanitari have lost an entire unit of their precious tribesmen. But the Roman units have all been heavily engaged and have accumulated a great deal of fatigue. Perfidius and the legionaries have found themselves, like the now destroyed tribesmen before them, somewhat isolated and facing an overwhelming number of angry and hungry Germanic tribesmen. The auxiliaries will need to revive themselves quickly and move to support their centurion, before he is overpowered by superior numbers of insanitari. Turn 4's initiative roll could well prove decisive. The initiative stays with the insanitari in turn 4, and both commanders look to take the opportunity to prepare their remaining forces for the final struggle to come. Adalbrain commands his archers to keep the pressure up on the legionaries, but, again, the bowmen fail to make any impact on the Romans. Although there is no further combat in turn 4, both sides have done their best to get into position to launch the fatal strike. The auxiliaries are moving up, but are still some distance away from being able to support Perfidius and the legionaries. Adalbrain has massed his remaining forces to engage Perfidius at the bend in the track and block them from driving the cattle to the safety of the bridge. The future of the cattle remains in the balance. With both forces having refreshed and reorganized themselves in the previous turn, turn 5 looks as though it may bring the battle to its climax, and it is the Romans who snatch the initiative and look to break through to the safety of the bridge. Perfidius immediately launches his legionaries at the tribesmen formed up on the track, and they hurl their pila into the mass of bodies arrayed before them. 2 hits is not what the centurion wanted to see, but the insanitari are unable to save them and 2 of their number go down. Even worse, the tribesmen gain 2 fatigue points, which leaves them stalled and unable to react to the Romans' next action. With the 2 tribesmen killed, the legionaries storm into an all-out attack with equal numbers. And worse for the Germans, they are already suffering the negative effects from fatigue. The tribesmen choose to defend for their combat response, but poor dice rolling still leaves them with another 3 casualties. The veteran Baldenhard looks on in despair, as he realizes that the likelihood of getting his hands on the cattle is diminishing fast. The 3 remaining tribesmen have now used 2 of their actions and have accumulated no less than 5 fatigue points. There is little chance of them preventing the legionaries forcing their way through to the bridge next turn. As the weary combatants on the track draw breath, the Blue Shield Auxiliaries advance towards Adalbrain's last remaining intact unit of tribesmen. Seeing how badly the situation to his left is deteriorating, Adalbrain throws caution to the wind and takes a reaction test to send his tribesmen into an all-out attack on the Blue Shield Auxiliaries. The auxiliaries choose to counterattack and the two forces collide with a sickening thud. The Germans' roll includes a 6 which, in total, gives them 6 hits against the Romans. In return, the auxiliaries score 5 hits against the Insanitari. Finally, it begins to look as though the tide might just be turning in favor of the Insanitari, as they lose 2 of their number, but 3 of the auxiliaries are slain. The Romans' morale test goes badly and their fatigue shoots up to a critical 5, leaving them stalled, which brings their activation to a close. The auxiliaries are left in a critical state following the combat, having amassed 5 fatigue points and being outnumbered by the Insanitari facing them. In a desperate attempt to capitalize on the success of Adalbrain's tribesmen, Boldenhard commands his javelin men to hurl their weapons into the recovering legionaries. In an unexpected turn of events, the javelin men score 2 hits, which the legionaries fail to block and 2 of their number are killed. Adding to their woes, the legionaries fail 2 of their morale rolls and suddenly find themselves with a worrying level of fatigue. Adalbrain, meanwhile, is determined to press his advantage against the Blue Shield Auxiliaries and launches his tribesmen back into the attack. They score another 2 hits, but the Romans manage to defend 1 of them, taking them down to half their original number. Then, disaster strikes the auxiliaries, as they fail their morale rolls and the resulting extra casualties sees them break and run from the field of battle. Suddenly, Adalbrain and Boldenhard begin to see that their efforts may just have gained them a victory, a hearty lunch and the favor of the Insanitari tribal ladies. The trouble with fighting Romans is that there is always a nasty turn of events waiting just around the corner. Having taken 2 actions and acquired 3 fatigue points in breaking 1 auxiliary unit, Adalbrain's brave but exhausted tribesmen unexpectedly find themselves assailed by Optio Odius and his 1 remaining unit of totally rested auxiliaries. Launching an all-out attack against the weary Insanitari, the auxiliaries score an impressive 5 hits and the astonished tribesmen are only able to save 1 of them. With 4 casualties caused in 1 round of combat, it appears that the Insanitari have managed to snatch defeat from the tantalizingly close jaws of victory. Yet another catastrophic morale failure sees the last 2 remaining tribesmen flee. And with that, Adalbrain decides that the day is lost and his fleeting smell of success has turned into some cold and hungry nights to come. For the Britanniarum in Felix, their last-minute victory will mean praise indeed from General Germanicus. Although, they will receive no part of the chattels they have fought so valiantly to defend. With their numbers severely depleted, but the herd of cattle still intact, Perfidius and Odius reform their column and prepare to continue their journey to the marching camp of General Germanicus. The general will have his feast and the goddess Minerva will smile benevolently down upon the Romans and cast her bountiful blessings upon their martial endeavors. For Adalbrain, Boldenhard and the few survivors of their daring attempt to relieve a Roman convoy of its livestock, life has taken a disastrous turn for the worse. Just how bad their reception will be upon their return to the village and the eagerly waiting and severely starving Insanitari women, none dare even to imagine. Worse, much worse, their actions have brought them to the attention of the Roman military machine and its desire to avenge the lost legions of the battle in the Teutoburg forest. The likelihood of the Insanitari tribe receiving a visit from the Britanniarum in Felix in the not-too-distant future has risen from the improbable to an absolute cast-iron guaranteed certainty. And so, with the dice and the scenery returned to their boxes and the little painted men carefully put to bed, it is time to say Velit, Amici mai. Goodbye, my friends. May the gods keep you safe. And fortune be forever with you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to watch. And, Jupiter willing, we hope to see you soon for more Clash of Spears tabletop action.